he's a good player, and it's cap friendly in the first year. I think it's a good move. But the question is, what are they going to do next? Because they've got some glaring needs at receiver, and I don't know where they're going to go. Are they going to do it through the draft? The free agents aren't real great. We talked about guys like Golden Tate and Terrell Williams from the Chargers, but what move do you think they make next?
I looked at Over the Cap this morning, which does a great job of tracking salary cap space. And after Landon Collins, they're underneath $10 million right now. And remember, they got 9 draft picks. To sign those guys, that's going to eat up a lot of that $9 million. I mean, if they're going to be players here in the next few days in free agency, and they're certainly doing their due diligence, and talking to people around the league, I mean, they're putting their feelers out. They're looking at the market. They're trying to get other guys. They're going to have to make some very tough decisions on some players who are currently on the roster. They're going to have to either cut some players, or they're going to have to do something they really don't like, something they really haven't done a whole lot of in the Bruce Allen era, which is restructure contracts, which is turning base salary into signing bonus and adding years to the contracts. You're really just punting money down the road. So you're creating problems for yourself in later years. But if they're going to go out and get some good players, I mean, the one thing, that jumps to mind is left guard. I mean, they've got to solve that. Is there a guy in the draft that they can get early and get ready to go? That, to me, that's a position that probably needs to be addressed in free agency. When it comes to wide receiver, yes, they need more pop. They need more sizzle. They need some more playmakers, especially with Colt McCoy and Case Keenum as your quarterbacks. I think that internally they kind of count Paul Richardson as maybe being one of those guys because he was hurt from training camp on. You really didn't get to see what he brings to the table in 2018. So, getting him back healthy, I think, is going to be a big boost for this team. But you look at the teams that have sustained success over years, guys, it is built through the draft. And then they develop those players. They squeeze everything they can out of them, and they let them go, and they get compensatories, and they do the whole process all over again. And I think given where the Redskins are cap-wise, I don't see them, restructuring a bunch of contracts and making some really – so any moves of the size of Landon Collins, I see them kind of waiting to see guys, weeks into free agency who are starting to get a little nervous about, hey, where am I going to end up? Serviceable starters, bargains, guys they can get, not necessarily on the cheap, but guys who are starting to get concerned that they may not have a chair. And you can get one of those players on a reasonable contract and bring him in and turn him into a starter.
Joined by Tarik El-Bashir, Redskins and Caps reporter for The Athletic on the Mattress Warehouse hotline. Do you think with the acquisition of Case Keenum, the Skins are still in on Josh Rosen trying to trade for him from Arizona?
Look, I know there's been conversations. They're listening. I think anyone who suspects that Arizona is going to draft Kyler Murray is listening. I mean, Josh Rosen was a player that Arizona traded up to get last year. He's got unbelievable arm talent. He's got some ability. What we don't know is how good he's going to be because he played behind a really suspect offensive line last year on, let's be honest, guys, just a terrible team. It was not a great situation for a rookie quarterback to come into. Look, if the Redskins could make that work, I think absolutely they need to be in on that. I don't think they're done at the quarterback position. I think that if get a quarterback in the second, third round that I think has a high ceiling, I think they might take a chance even on one of those players. I mean, when you look at what they've got right now, Keenum and Colt, they could probably get you through a season. They're going to be free agents next year, so they're not the future. At some point, you have to get into the building the guy you want to build around long term. It's the most important position in the game, and if you don't have one, it's really hard to build a successful program. Just constantly, backfilling and trying and scrambling every offseason to get somebody in who can, pick up the offense and lead your team to victories in the fall. It's an impossible task, and I think right now the Skins have kind of bridged the gap, plugged the hole, but at some point here they've got to bring in their long-term starter, whether it's Josh Rosen or whether it's somebody in the draft this year or next.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there'll be bigger players in free agency in the next few days, or do you think they're going to maybe sign a couple of nondescript guys, no big names, and just focus on the draft?
Yeah, I mean, that's the sense I'm getting. I'll be honest, the Redskins have done a very good job of not telegraphing their moves. And, you even look at some of the national newsbreakers, and there's not a whole lot of rumors out there. A lot of the stuff is coming from agents who are trying to drive up the price of their clients by throwing the Redskins name in there. What I've learned over the years, guys, is you just follow the money. Look at the cap space. Look at the hard decisions that have to be made. You got to remember, for every player the Redskins cut in order to create cap space to go sign a new player, that's another hole they just created in a lineup that, before Alex Smith's injury last year was 6-3. So that's a long-winded way of saying I just don't see them making another huge splash. I think Landon Collins was that big splash. I see them nibbling around the edges and getting serviceable starters here in the next few days.